The two armies faced one another across the flat ground near the lower Euphrates, the river itself glinting behind the Arab ranks. On the Persian side, the Sassanid commander Hormozd had formed his troops in a solid defensive line. At the center were his heavy infantry, warriors armored in leather and metal, armed with long spears and swords. To prevent any collapse, he had ordered sections of the line to be linked by iron chains attached to belts or armor rings, ensuring they would hold formation even under the shock of cavalry charges. To his left and right stood mounted units composed of noble cavalry, riders trained to exploit openings once the enemy line was slowed or scattered. Khalid, observing this structure, understood both the strength and the weakness of the Persian plan. A chained line could not easily flee and would not break under sudden impact, but neither could it adjust to flanking maneuvers or rapid changes in the battlefield. It was an anchor, not a net. To exploit that flaw, Khalid formed his army with a flexible center, and wings kept deliberately loose, ready to move wide if opportunity opened. He placed archers forward in small clusters to harass the Persian front and draw fire, and kept his mobile reserve close enough to reinforce any weakness without committing too soon. The battle opened with missile exchanges. Persian archers released volleys in coordinated arcs, their arrows falling like dark rain against the Arab line. Khalid infantry absorbed the barrage behind shields, moving forward in short advances between volleys. Arab archers replied with more scattered fire, focusing on disrupting the heavy infantry rather than seeking large casualties. The gap between the armies narrowed, as both sides probed for timing. When the infantry lines finally closed, the contrast between the two formations became immediately clear. The Persian center held firm behind interlocked spears, advancing in measured steps, while the Arab infantry approached with greater spacing, relying on personal skill and small unit coordination. The shield walls crashed together with a dense roar of metal and wood, spears thrusting and swords hacking in the tight formation. For a moment, the Persian strategy seemed effective. Their chained front absorbed the shock without yielding ground. Arab fighters pushed hard, but the solid center refused to buckle. However, the chains that held the line firm also made it rigid. Khalid saw this at once. He signaled to his officers on the wings, who in turn relayed orders down the line. The Arab right and left began to spread outward, stretching the battlefield horizontally, aiming to wrap around the Persian line before the heavy infantry could pivot. Hormozd attempted to counter by ordering his cavalry to wheel outward along both wings and strike the encircling Arabs. His riders surged forward, their armor shining and banners lifted high as they sought to break the widening flanks. But the Arabs met them with a combination of cavalry and light infantry, striking at horses and riders in quick bursts before retreating to pull the enemy farther from their own infantry. The engagement turned into a swirling fight of charges, withdrawals, and countercharges along the outer edges of the field. In the center, the battle grew more savage. Men fought chest to chest in the narrow gaps between spears. The chained infantry could not retreat or reposition, so they doubled down, pushing forward with their shields and thrusting with spears. Khalid moved along the rear of his own center, calling for relentless pressure. Slowly, under continuous assault, the Persian line began to experience the cost of rigidity. When men fell, the chain either pulled them down or forced those beside them to hold the gap. Wounded fighters could not withdraw to safety, so the front became clogged with the dying and the dead. Sensing the moment, Khalid committed his reserve. A surge of cavalry and fresh infantry struck the Persian flank where their cavalry had ridden too far forward. The thunder of hooves and the sudden shock of impact shook the defenders, who turned to meet the threat but could not disengage from the chain line. The formation that had seemed so secure at the start now trapped its own fighters. Once the flank cracked, the collapse spread inward. The Persian heavy infantry, unable to maneuver and with fewer cavalry to protect the wings, began to lose cohesion. What had been a solid wall became a grinding mass of struggling men. Arab fighters cut through the gaps, breaking the chain links in places and widening breaches until the center began to fold. Hormozd, recognizing the danger, attempted to rally his men, but the damage had been done. Without mobility, the line could not fall back in order. The retreat turned to flight, and flight turned to rout. Men abandoned shields and weapons and ran for the rear, where the river and the canal systems offered little escape. Many were cut down along